Hello everybody, welcome to the Boxing Science Podcast. This is episode 70. We're going to be answering your questions around a range of different subjects regarding sports science, strength conditioning in boxing and combat sports. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a range of different subjects. Training with body weight or just limited equipment, how to tailor to individual training needs, conditioning methods to use on a watt bike or an air bike, how to improve power endurance, and a lot more. Hit that subscribe button so don't miss out on any future content and support the growth of the channel. Let's get on with episode 70 of the Boxing Science Podcast. So this question from Justin Flores 1620. What are some of the best boxing workouts that you can do at home with limited equipment, such as treadmill, dumbbells, and body weight? At Boxing Science, we often share body weight or limited equipment workouts because we understand that not everybody has the fortunate circumstances that we have at the Boxing Science Performance Centre, where we've got a range of different kits where workout is more or less limitless. Whereas like in boxing gyms, or let's say on a limited time schedule, or you're training at home, you might be limited to just a kettlebell, some dumbbells, or maybe just a body weight workout. And there's plenty of ways that you can train with limited equipment. And this is why at Boxing Science we share this on our YouTube channel. So I suggest that you go and check out some of these workouts, including our brand new circuit conditioning for combat sports program, which has over 70 circuit programs. So if you haven't got access to a treadmill or you are very limited on time, these circuits can be really beneficial. Whether it's a body weight circuit where you're looking at performing high knees, burpees, different variations of high force, high speed, high repetition exercises to help elevate your heart rate into the red zone. Or let's say if you're doing a strength workout and you've only got a dumbbell or a kettlebell or whatever, you can do goblet squats, press ups, you can do prone TYWs, you can do prisoner reverse lunges or prisoner split squats. All you needed there was just one dumbbell to be able to put the strength circuit together. You can do body weight core circuits by doing straight arm, straight leg setups, leg lowers, straight into supine core holds. These are very simple exercises that are very time efficient, that require zero equipment. And these are still exercises that we still use on the Boxing Science program when they're finishing off their strength workouts or whatever. It's still meeting the adaptations that we'd still target when we've got limitless equipment. Lots of different things that you can do. I'd suggest to go and check out our Boxing Science workouts. That's on the Boxing Science YouTube page. Or go and check out our Boxing Science membership, where we've got a range of different workouts that you can follow from home. Check out the link in the description. Next question. How do I design and prioritize exercise needs and programs based on each trainee or individual? So there's quite a few different steps on how to adapt training methods to an individual. First of all, we highlight strengths and areas for improvement, taking an athlete through the Boxing Science testing battery. This is looking at an athlete's lower body strength, speed and power, looking at their rotational strength, grip strength, and also looking at their punch power as well. Before we take them on to our physiological assessments, we have a lactate profile, which is more of an endurance test. And then we have our 30-second maximal sprints, which is our power endurance assessment. Very privileged to be in a position where we've got access to all this kit, but also we have a pretty strong database as well of over 600 athletes, young amateurs, all the way through to world champions, where we can pinpoint an athlete's performance and compare an athlete's performance to their peer group. Whether that's a female boxer or a heavyweight professional boxer, we can say this is what the standards that you need to hit. And this is the reason why we have athletes traveling from all over the country, also overseas, to take part in our testing battery. This can be made available for individual or even group usage. So if you're interested, if you're part of a gym that wants to come down to the Boxing Science Performance Centre, drop me an email, dannywilson@boxingscience.co.uk. We can offer our individual or group testing and training packages. Back onto this answer is that, yeah, we highlight strengths areas for improvement, but there's a lot of different things. There's individual characteristics in terms of how available they are for strength conditioning, how bought in they are, what is their training age and status, Are they relatively new to strength and conditioning, or have they been doing strength and conditioning for quite a while and they're hitting really good numbers on the trap bar deadlifts, the pressing exercises, the squatting exercises as well? We look at their injury history as well. What injuries have they had in the past, whether it's an injured shoulder, lower back issues, anything like that can really have an impact on the exercises that have been selected. What's the level of competition? Are we working with an athlete right at the very start of their career, or are we working with an athlete that's right at the top end of their career? So many times that we've been brought into world championship title fights for a 10, 12 week camp. We're not going to be able to change that athlete 100% within that short window. We needed to get the best out of them, so we need to work towards their super strengths. Whereas like we have a lot of young athletes on the program, started working with 18-year-old heavyweight Leo Atang. We know that it's a developmental stage and we've got a lot of time to get him to where we need him to be. Rather than trying to peak for every single fight, we know that we've got a long, steady run at it to make sure that we're developing them strong foundations for a long-term project. Whereas Fabio Wardley, for example, he's right at the pinnacle now, working towards world title fights. We're just looking to try and get the best out of him every single fight camp. So then you've got different things in mind. What's their work schedule like? Have they got any other commitments, family commitments, travel commitments to get to your gym? So there's not a black and white answer. There's a lot of grey stuff there that you have to rely on your knowledge, your experience. Even if you're lacking in that knowledge and experience, it's having the conversations with the athlete to find as much about them as possible. That's how we tailor our training. It's not only taking it from the boxing science testing battery, but having a holistic approach, looking at lots of different things that can contribute to different exercises being selected, different conditioning methods being selected, which is really vital in, let's say, how much weight they have to lose. It's a weight-making sport. Some athletes need to really crash the weight off in a short amount of time. This means that their energy expenditure needs to be high. Also, we need to avoid putting on any muscle mass because this will affect their ability to make weight. So there's lots of different things that you've got to consider. It's very difficult to answer in one question, but if you're wanting more guidance on this, again, drop me an email at DannyWilson@boxingscience.co.uk. We've also got some workshops on the Boxing Science membership, the Train Like Champion membership, but also we go into this in more detail on our Boxing Science mentorship as well. So if you're interested in any of these, drop me an email, DannyWilson@boxingscience.co.uk, or check out the link in description going through to our memberships. Some advice for training and avoiding injuries for the forearms. If you are getting injured in the forearms, you've got to be thinking, why is this happening? You know, we can be looking at different exercises such as grip strength exercises, reverse dumbbell curls, looking at some arm conditioning as well to be trying to protect the arm. But also you've got to be thinking, why is this occurring? More than likely, something's happening within the punching technique. Let's say you're winging your shots round and you're getting a lot of forearm action there. Also might be looking at like shoulder strength and shoulder stability. If you're not as stable through the shoulder, there's more movement in the arm. This means that there's going to be more muscle activation going through the forearm that can end up being injured or overuse injury. It might be something not just from the shoulder, but from the core rotation as well. I had an athlete that was really struggling with their hand injuries. We did a number of tests. He said, right, I've had injections, I've had dry needling, physio exercises. And I said, right, there might be something else that's happening in the chain. And what we worked out is that really posterior shoulder strength wasn't that great. And also rotational core strength wasn't great either. The combination of the rotation not being as strong and the shoulder stability not being as good meant that there was more movement going into the punch. More movement going into the punch, more unstable, means that the impact forces going through the hand was increased, and this led to getting hand injuries. And this can happen anywhere, whether it's the forearm, elbow, shoulder. There might be something else going off in the chain. So I'd say to have this in mind, whether it's like doing some sort of strength testing, going to a strength and conditioning coach, going to a physio to try and find out a little bit more, not just looking and isolating the forearm, but looking at something else along the chain that might be contributing to that forearm being overused. Hopefully that's answered your question. Like I've said in the previous question, if you're wanting to find out more about our testing packages or consultancy packages that can try and help you even further, drop me an email, DannyWilson@boxingscience.co.uk. Are there any conditioning sessions that you would use on a watt bike / spin bike? And if yes, what kind of intervals or methods would you use? In terms of watt bike and cycling in general, is something that we kind of steer away from at Boxing Science unless there is some sort of upper body injury. The reason why it's quite difficult for boxers to get into the correct zones because of local muscular fatigue and an inefficient cycling technique to get into like the red zone, for example. So this is the reason why we use the altitude tent, the Power Breathe altitude tent, with the watt bike whenever we need to use the watt bike to make sure that there's an increased cardiovascular demand so we can get our athletes into the red zone at lower intensities. If we're going to be using the watt bike, something that we have used in different times, whether that's off season, working with injured athletes, we do some varied intervals, whether it's like on the pyramid conditioning where we're working from 4 minutes on, 2 minutes off, going down to 2 minutes, 1 minute, and also 30-second intervals. We often go for a waved approach as well on our longer intervals. Let's say on 4-minute intervals, we'll try and go to an increased wattage, drop it down a little bit, and then go again. So for example, on the 4 minutes, we'd split that up into 20 seconds on, 10 second off intervals, with 20 seconds being a higher wattage, 10 seconds of being slightly lower wattage. And this kind of waved response will help increase the average wattage of that set, and the spikes in terms of intensity will help spike that heart rate further. For longer intervals, make sure that you try and shorten it down, go for some waved responses to try and increase the average watts on the long intervals, but also increase the heart rate response as well. On the air bike, we like to do, again, we can do some pyramid conditioning, but mainly we do our power endurance or repeated sprint conditioning, whether that's 12 seconds on, 48 seconds off to target muscle buffering capacity, or our 30-second max out sprint protocols with 3-minute recovery for peripheral adaptations. These are quite difficult to do on the watt bike. The reason why is because a lot of local muscular fatigue. A lot of local muscular fatigue will affect the intensity going into each set, which will affect the physical adaptation. So that's why we primarily do our more intense training, so repeated sprint and our peripheral adaptations, 30-second max out sprints on the air bike over the watt bike. The watt bike can be useful for injured athletes or in the off season, but just making sure we do these little tweaks here and there to try and elevate that heart rate to optimize physical adaptations. So this question is quite a long one, so I'll keep it quite short. How often should you change your strength training routine or exercises as an amateur boxer? Just for like training in general, you should be changing your training program between every 4 and 6 weeks, maybe even between 3 and 6 weeks, depending on what training adaptation you're targeting. For maximum strength training, you need a little bit longer, so you're working between 4 and 6 weeks. But for strength speed, or maybe even speed strength adaptations, some of our training blocks, especially for professional boxers, between 2 and 3 weeks. It really depends on the adaptation that you're targeting. And it doesn't necessarily need to be all different exercises, every single block, but a change in approach in terms of the physical adaptation that you're targeting. So you might be targeting maximum strength with the trap bar deadlift and then transferring that into like some strength speed adaptations. So you might be working between 3 and 5 reps at 80 to 95% of 1 rep max, and then transferring that to strength speed, where you're working between 70 and 80% 1 rep max, again, working for 3 reps, but lifting with speed and working at a different velocity target. We can go the other way where we're looking at trap bar deadlift, but we're looking for strength foundations or maybe hypertrophy gains, where we're working between 5 and 8 reps, but at a lower intensity. So it's not just about blocks being quite rigid. It's not about changing the exercises each time, but it's how long that you need to be working on a particular adaptation. From a general rule of thumb, we say for our programs to be between 4 and 6 weeks long for very particular plans. So let's say with our professional boxers, we'll start a periodized plan at the start of camp, and we have very structured cycles to make sure that our athlete is progressing throughout the training camp and achieving peak performance on fight night. Best muscle buffering conditioning you see best for heavyweights in terms of running, air bike, Or I also see you recommend circuits. I think for power endurance in particular, needs to be off feet. So it needs to be either the circuits or primarily working on the air bike. The reason why is because the amount of speed that they need to hit, the amount of force that they need to produce to develop that sort of power and really challenge power endurance won't be achievable during sprinting, whether that's outdoors or whether that's on the curve. And then you're outweighing the risk versus reward. There's going to be high amounts of impact forces that a heavyweight boxer will have to deal with when sprinting for power endurance. If you're not even going to be taxing the body sufficiently enough to create that adaptation, the risk versus reward is quite high in terms of high risk, very low reward. We're flipping it on its head. With the air bike sprints, we know that we're going to be able to produce a lot of power without them impact forces being a risk to the athlete getting injured. Then we use power endurance circuits as well. So quite recently we've done this with Fabio Wardley going into his fight with Justice Hune, where we're working a range of different powerful exercises that's going to be challenging his ability to produce high speeds and high forces under fatigue, and also to remain concentrated under fatigue as well. So this is the reason why we use the blaze pods in between there to keep him switched on whilst he's producing these high force, high speed efforts under a fatiguing scenario. And this paid dividends in his fight where he got the 10th round knockout, landing the perfect right hand. Okay, so this question, can we get a video talking about jammer arms versus Olympic lifts versus landmine training? So jammer arms is something that I've seen like a lot of combat sport strength and conditioning coaches use. We primarily go with general exercises such as dumbbell chest press, floor press with bands, doing our landmine press for different variations, landmine split jerks, everything like that. We're getting the right adaptations from this. From a punch specific point of view, landmine punch we feel is a better exercise than the jammer arms. The reason why the jammer arms are very upper body dominant and require a lot more upper body strength and power. So this is really good for that adaptation. But from a punch adaptation, we're looking for that rotational power, that kinetic chain sequencing from floor to face. We're looking more or less for most of the acceleration happening here. We've seen in slow-mo shots and acceleration tracers using the gym aware that the peak velocity of the landmine punch happens here. And then the rest of it is a release. So when we're looking at the jammer arm is, people rotate into it, but it requires a big press from the upper body. Whereas the landmine punch is there, twisting, rotating, releasing, more or less there, but most of the velocity comes from that lower body, hip rotation and torso rotation. There is a place for jammer arms in the program, I think, because it does generate force from the lower body through to the face, but because of the increase element from the arms, we feel like we can get this from exercises like just mentioned, such as the landmine push press, such as like the dumbbell press. We can do variations where we're doing hip thrust into chest press, but we've got a lot of punch specific variations there with the landmine punch, where if we use a jammer, we wouldn't get that adaptations that we need in that rapid hip and torso rotation and that release of the arm through the flight of the landmine. Okay guys, that's the end of this video, the end of the Boxing Science Podcast, episode 70. Thank you very much for watching or listening to our podcast. Really appreciate the support. If you're not a subscriber yet, hit that subscribe button so don't miss out on any future content, and also support the growth of the channel. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Hopefully see you on the next episode of the Boxing Science Podcast.